Welcome to the Freedom Founder Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Duggar. Now, have you ever had a big vision for a big goal? Sometimes those big goals take a lot of time and consistency, but you can accomplish them if you have the right mindset. Now, my guest today, Kerry-Ann Powell, is here to share some of her journey and her vision and some of her current work that she is doing as an entrepreneur. So, Kerry-Ann, thank you for joining me today.
Zach, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I love to start with just kind of hearing a little background about your story, what got you into becoming an entrepreneur, starting business, and what was that motivation that got you there?
Yeah, oftentimes people ask me that question, and I used to initially start with, well, I was doing, this great work in Washington, D.C., and as I was moving forward, I realized that my particular skill set was, good for CEOs of small and medium-sized companies, and so I started to start a business that way. But the truth is, Zach, I realize I've always sort of had an entrepreneurial spirit from the very beginning. And I
Hmm.
think it was because of watching my father and his friends. I think about, children are so influenceable. When I think about the leaders in our community, the people who, if something went wrong at the church, who, stepped up and led, the people that were on boards of directors of the organizations that my father served on as well, these were all entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And they were folks that were running businesses, different sizes, but they were stalwart pillars in the community. And I think
Hmm.
I always had this sense of entrepreneurship as being an honorable thing to be, an honorable way to live one's life. And so I think that was the imprint that I had from very early on. And then as I, I remember I was in junior high school. I was the president of the Future Business Leaders of America. And so I think I always had this entrepreneurial spirit, this entrepreneurial desire to lead through business. And and obviously as I progressed through my career, I was an attorney and a lobbyist in Washington, D.C., and a fundraiser. And once I finished building the Martin Luther King Memorial, I wanted
Hmm.
to start my own business again. So I think that's
Yeah.
the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. You're absolutely right. We, as children, we are watching. We're mindful of what we see around us and our parents, our families, our friends, our others and other adults that are influencing us in our lives just by
Yeah.
observation, what they do.
Observation.
Yeah.
Observation. It's one of the things now because it's sort of funny. So we came from a family that was very uh, education was something that was a extremely high value, and so the majority of like my me and my siblings, there's three of us, and then all of our cousins and so forth, all sort of went into careers that required high levels of education.
Mm.
My parents have two PhDs, and so I came from that space. So even though I was imprinted with this concept that entrepreneurship and business ownership was something that was honorable, and I really, kind of jived with it a little,
Mhm.
the messages we were sent was to go to get higher education, to become a doctor or a lawyer, and blah
Mm.
blah blah blah, and which is what
Yep.
we all ended up doing. But I was looking back at my nieces, so now I've got five nieces,
Okay.
and I'm like, what are the messages that are being sent to them from us, meaning me, my brother, and my sister, for instance? And all of us, even though we all went to higher education, we all three own businesses now. And
Yeah.
so, and we're all three entrepreneurs. And so, for them, for my nieces, even though they're still getting the message that, go to get, university, get a higher degree, and, sort of follow a traditional trait, they all have sort of a very edgy entrepreneurial kind of thing about them. And I'm interested to sort of see how they will evolve in their own process and their own journeys.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. What a great continued example for the next generation. So love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Now, becoming an entrepreneur is on the back end, it looks for others like it's an easy process. Like, wow, you have this successful business, and it looks like you didn't have to go through any trials or
No
challenges or
trials at all,
struggles.
Zach. It was easy
Mm.
peasy butter.
Yeah, well, I would like the truth. Let's talk about the truth. What kind of things did you have to overcome in order to have a successful business over
Well,
time?
I think myself and what I've observed with my clients and people that I know, the biggest real thing, I mean, look, everyone calls me the strategy queen. I'm all about the strategy and all that good stuff. But the real thing, Zach, is being able to confront the demons within.
Okay.
There's an African proverb that says, I know, if there's no enemy within, the enemy without can do you no harm. We are our own, and Bob Marley says, emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
Hmm.
Our mindset can keep us playing at such a small level. And even after you, first, the mindset will tell you, well, you're not, who are you to do the thing, right? Who are you to
Hmm.
start a business? Keep with your government, with your safe government job, or as we used to say, right? Keep with a
Yep.
safe job. But even once you get into it and you say, okay, now you confront that particular mindset, now you're in it. Even if you, I mean, I have met people and I've worked with people who've invested significant amounts of money in building their businesses and still on a day to day think, who am I to do this? And
Hmm.
maybe, and it's not just about. I want to be clear, Zach. It's not just about an imaginary fear. There are
Yeah.
some things that you face that are evidentiary that make you think you need. So when the
Hmm.
cash flow is low, that's real. That's not
Yep.
imaginary. But the question is, how do you um, shift your mindset, shift the way you're viewing things, reframe so that you can be able to then confront the actual problem, which is lack of cash. And then how do
Uh-huh.
you do that? So I think even though, I think there's some fundamental things that need to happen in a business for an entrepreneur to feel solid, at the same time, I realize that the number, the amount of work one must do to keep their mind in order and strong requires a great deal of work.
Yeah, let's talk a little further about that because I definitely know what you mean. I've had my own experiences with having to work on my mindset about business and struggles going up and down emotionally as we go through kind of a roller coaster at times. What are some of the strategies that you share with clients and that you work on together to help inform them, or that you've used yourself to help with your mindset, with mindset, so that the accomplishments can be made?
Yeah, there's sort of two categories that these are not categories that are written in somebody's dictionary.
Yep.
This is how I sort of consider mindset work, right? There is the practical things that one must do so that you are supporting a strong mindset, and then there are the actual practices of the same way you would need to eat or breathe or drink water, the same way you need to do some practices within your life to support that. So let's first start with the first one. I find, and people, you might think this is weird, but I have found that so many people don't have an actual clear look. Folks that I work with are small and medium sized
Hmm.
businesses. So the owners are still operating within the business for the most part.
Yep.
They may have evolved past, being functional in the business and they may be serving as a leadership role, but they're still working in the business.
Yeah.
So I still believe that once, if you're in those stage where you're starting, you're in the startup stage, or you're in the medium sized stage, but you are still working in it, your life plan still should lead the vision of the business and not the other way around. Meaning, if you have a very clear vision of what you want your life to be, how you want your life to operate, and then looking at the business vision and seeing if there's alignment there. And if there's not alignment, Zach, what do we tweak? We don't tweak the life plan, we tweak the business vision. One cannot operate without alignment between how you want your life to be and the business. The business is there to
Yep.
serve, to add value, to generate value to the stakeholders. And in the very early days, the business owner is the main stakeholder. Obviously, your employees and your customers are stakeholders as well. But when we're talking about it, so if you can fundamentally make sure that you're aligned, that is one huge step. Because if you're not aligned, it's like walking with a pebble in your shoe. There's just you.
Mm.
No matter, you could be wearing the most comfortable shoes, the most expensive custom made shoes, but if there's a pebble in it, it's not going to work. Right.
Yeah.
So that's
Yep.
one thing. But when you look over to like what are some of the practices one must have in order to be certain that to sort of support your mindset, there's some one practice is being able to people often say, oh, she was born resilient or she was born a leader. Now, these are
Uh-huh.
skills that we learn and we acquire over time. So you kind of begin to take a look at your own self and see what are the things in my inner world that are skill sets that are lacking, and you find ways to build them. So resiliency is one.
Mm.
Building resiliency. Now, we are naturally resilient as humans. However, finding techniques that can build your resiliency is a really important thing. Finding strategies that can, so that's one of the things. Another thing would be identity. Oftentimes, we don't really see ourselves the way that the person who we need to be in order to be the business owner we need to be. Bob Proctor always said, you cannot out earn your self image. You cannot out earn yours. So you might be really great at strategy and have a whole big vision of becoming a
Mhm.
billion-dollar company in the next 15 years. But if your self image, the image you have of yourself is, I'm a I'm just a $200,000 company. No matter how much you try,
Mhm.
you're not going to out earn that. So part of it is convincing your subconscious mind of the identity of who you are. And sometimes that feels very fake when you start doing it. Some of it might be incantation, some of it might be writing. Again,
Yep.
there's no one cookie cutter way. However, the goal here is to convince your subconscious mind of the person that you need to be in order to own that $1 million company. And
Yep.
at first, it will feel very uncomfortable. So if say you're doing mirror work and you're looking in the mirror and saying, I am the owner of a $10 million company, whatever it is that you're doing, it might feel a little bit uncomfortable. You're like, 'cause I really don't think I am. However, there are studies that show that you continue to convince yourself, you continue to say these things at a peak state, not just like, well, I'm over here, $10 million owner. But if you're doing it in a peak state and you are saying the thing, believing the thing, your physiology is firm and strong, over time you can change your self-image. So those are the two kinds of ways I like to look at it. One,
Yep.
practically, is your business aligned with your life? Do you have a life vision? And are you clear about it? Is it compelling? And is your business vision and how you plan to operate the business aligned with that? One side of things. On the other side, identifying the things that are keeping you. And some of the ways that I think are keeping people back are resiliency, identity, and also being this sense of urgency.
Yeah.
That you need to have a sense of urgency, this kind of idea that, well, I believe, yes, I do believe you do your work, and then there's some sort of a spirit world out there that's doing theirs, and then you're kind of
Mhm.
working together. But if you don't have a sense of urgency, I can't help you there.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So definitely aligning your life vision with your business, making
Yeah,
sure that that is in place is key. Working on the mindset and even the ways that you just described, I think is something that, like you said, it's not always comfortable when you're starting off and you're trying to shift the way that your mindset has been or that you
yeah,
have been stuck in for a period of time. But over time, you can work to change that subconscious thought pattern to be
exactly.
one that allows you to excel. Because when you're able to get to that point that you're able to think in a way that is that $1 million company mindset, then your actions can follow your mindset.
Exactly, Zach. That's exactly it. It's difficult. It's difficult to, I always think of it like with mindset is, look, we all can do a lot of things up until a certain point with brute force.
Mm,
And I'm and sometimes, when you, particularly like when you're sort of fight or flight situations, it's all brute force happening there, right? You're just going for it. So there are some things that we can do through brute force, but at some point in time there is fatigue, and your mindset has to be the thing that carries you through. It's like holding, a stack of encyclopedias with your
mhm,
arms stretched out. You can do that for a bit, Zach. Some people can do it longer because they have more muscle strength or whatever. The point is, people can do it for a period of time, and it's just all about their muscle strength. But at some point in time, the muscles will fatigue. And that's what happens when you do things through brute force. At some point, there will be fatigue. However, if you can buttress up your mindset, that it can carry you through so much longer than you think. And I don't want to paint a picture that is
mhm.
false. It's not like if you strengthen your mindset, you will never have dips. But when you strengthen your mindset, what happens is, when you go down in the dips, you're not there as long.
Yeah.
And the number of dips are short, like are it's a longer period of time between each dip. Folks who haven't quite done the art of working on their mindset, every single day they have a
Mhm.
dip and they're down on the dip for weeks, right? The
Yep.
goal here is, life happens. We're human. We're not these robots or computers. So the goal here is that if there are dips, you want to be down there as fast, I mean, as a short period of time as you possibly can.
Yep.
And you want to be able to lengthen the period of time between the dips, meaning not everything brings you down.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, no, that's a very good point because, yeah, we're not robots. We are always going to have some periods of dips. And so just getting to that place where you can experience those for a shorter period of time to get
Yeah,
back up and keep moving forward.
yeah.
Now, for some people, they hear that, they think, okay, I can do some mirror work, I can write some things. What other types of strategies or books or resources do you suggest that
Yeah.
people look at when they're considering how maybe they're stuck in it right now and their mindset is just they're feeling anxious, feeling depressed, feeling stressed, having difficulty sleeping. So where's a good
I think
starting
I
point?
think when you're in those moments,
Huh?
there are some things that support. I know there are some great books. I'm going to recommend a couple.
Yeah.
But when you're in those moments, you cannot ignore the fact that we are our bodies, our minds, our spirits are all connected. So then you have to start looking first within. Are there some things that you can do to support yourself? Meaning, and again, this doesn't sound sexy, but it is some realities. Are you hydrating enough? Do you have enough water? I mean, just water alone is like, excuse me, if you can just get water in your body, it's like a plant. Have you ever seen a plant where it's completely dry and you're like, oh, it's dead? You start watering that baby and it just starts doing this whole like life thing happening. Because remember, we're all about more life. Our body, our spirit, our soul, our mind is all about more life. You give it what it needs. So water, are you eating right? The greens you need, the nutrients you need, because you'll be surprised just how what you're eating and drinking impacts your mindset. Not to mention, not to mention, um, oxygen. Are you breathing deep enough? Are you doing breath work alone? If you can get oxygen in your body, you'll be so surprised as to why, even like you're laying in bed and you're sort of depressed. Now, of course, I'm not a psychologist, but if
Mm,
you're
sure.
laying in bed and you can't even get out of bed, doing some breathing exercises that are short stints. I'm going to do it. That alone gets the oxygen moving, and you'd be so surprised how within 2 minutes it gets you going. So there's some fundamental things, Jack, that we have to do through our bodies. Look, entrepreneurship is basically athleticism, you know.
Yes.
It's like running a marathon. So you have to, if you look at the, the Olympics, the trials are happening right now. I don't know which one you like. I like watching the track and field people. Those folks are machines. And I guarantee you, if you spend some time with them, they're not sitting there eating Cheetos.
Right.
Well, a part of it is just some fundamental things. That's one thing. The
Yeah.
other thing is, um, what are the messages that are being sent into your mind? So, what the world, the messages that are out there in the world are very not serving. So you have to have spaces where you are hearing other types of messages. One way you can go about doing it is watching or reading, depending upon whether or not you like to listen audio. Audio is the way that works for you, or maybe when you're down, audio is the best way because you can't pick up a book, you don't have the energy. Audio or reading or being in watching movies of people who have done great things.
Yep.
That is a really great way because it reminds you that, wait, those people who I admire were crazy, just like I am, want to save the world or make the best product or provide the best services, but they themselves had the same challenges. Somehow this concept of me too, of I am like that too, that happened to me, you're not alone, that is something that is powerful for the human spirit. It's one of the reasons why shame one of the best antidotes to shame is actually that happened to me as well. You notice, like when you feel really embarrassed about something, you're like, oh my God, I can't do that. And then someone says, oh my God, I do that too. And you feel a little better, you know? So putting yourself in a situation where you're reading or listening or watching stories of people who've done great things, but they will always have a thing where there's like the time when they were dipping, and it inspires you again to get back up. So that's one thing. So, I mean, there's a ton of great stories out there. I mean, we don't,
Yeah.
I don't need to tell you how many wonderful, great stories there are out there about that. And it's all about who you admire. You need to have someone who you admire, because if it's just someone you don't admire, it's not going to do anything for you. There's a great scene in Sex and the City, the first series, when Charlotte was feeling down. She'd had a miscarriage, and she was just sort of in the dumps. And she watched this, I think it was MTV, celebrity life thing of Elizabeth Taylor.
Uh-huh.
That was her person she admired. And
Yep.
she got up and took a shower, put her hair up, put some makeup on, and walked out the door. So that really helps. The other thing too is sometimes your feelings of feeling down and depressed and like I can't do it are actually because you think that the problem you're facing in business is actually not solvable. And that, if you put yourself in, you keep reading books that keep you um, uh, aware of what are some of the strategies and techniques that people have used to solve those types of problems. One of my favorite authors is Jim Collins. He's the one who wrote, Built to Last. But what I love about him, people always think Jim Collins is kind of someone who is all about big business strategy. But the reality is he comes from the entrepreneurial perspective. The reason why he wrote those books like Built to Last and such was because he wanted to pull what are some of the enduring qualities, not like the tactic that happens today in 2023, but what's going to happen 24, like enduring qualities of businesses that lasts. So he wrote a book, BE 2.0, and it's the second edition of it because he and his partner had written it a few years back, but in 2020, when we all were kind of in the middle of
Hmm.
he reissued the book, a second edition, and it didn't get as much hoo-ha because he was, competing with other press. But recommend that book because that book is sort of a love story to entrepreneurs. It's actually, BE is Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0. So it's a great book. It's a love story to entrepreneurs, and it gives you some of the uh, enduring qualities that really will help you understand what makes a good business. Because if you're having chaos in your business, I'm not you your mindset is one part of it, but the other part of it is you need to get out of the chaos. I mean, you know,
Yep.
whatever the thing is that's causing you to feel a bit of a way, you must address that. So I believe that when we get into these slumps, we are kind of in inertia, and the longer you stay there, that's why I'm like, get out of there quick. Get in there and then get out real fast, because the more you sit in it, the longer you're there, and it's harder to then do the thing. An object at rest stays at rest, all
Yep.
right? An
Yep.
object in motion stays in motion. So everyone wants to think their way out of a slump. You can't think your way out of a slump. You just got to do a thing. And the thing could simply be, okay, I know that I can just pick up, if I just send the email, just send the email to all the prospective clients that I was trying to get, never, who all said no. Just send an email to them. That's action. You never really know what will happen from that. So minor action, if you cannot get out of bed, bring your computer with you to the
Yes.
bed, okay? And then just send an email.
Yeah.
Or the point is, you have to get yourself out of inertia. And the only way you get yourself out of inertia is by taking a step. It's
Yeah.
not thinking your way out of it.
Yep.
However, if you can provide the supporting tools to get you there. One other thing too is your why. One book that I really, really, really love is, and this book's probably about 10 years old now, but it's still so good. The name of the book is The Big Leap. Zach, you know that book,
Yep.
The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks?
I have heard of it. I haven't read it, but I've heard of that book.
It's really one of those, it is, what I would say it is, you know, Gay Hendricks is, prominent professor at one of the hoity-toity California universities, either UCLA or Berkeley. I don't remember. Nonetheless, so he's all about. He's coming from a psychologist perspective. However, he works with leading business executives, and he coaches them and works with them. So he has this interesting one foot in the academic world and research and one foot in the business world.
Yep.
And his theory is that oftentimes, that there's three things. There's a couple of zones. I'm not going to butcher it, but there's your zone of competence. All right, that's what we all can do. It's usually the thing we all fell into out of college.
Yep.
Then you've got your zone of excellence. It's a thing that you are rewarded. It's, you're good at it. You're quite good at it. You're rewarded for it. And then there's your zone of genius. Sometimes, and his thought is that each of us as humans need, by way of vocation, need to move into the zone of genius at some point. But most people are camping out in either the zone of excellence or the zone of competence. And but one of the things, so a part of it is making sure that you are actually operating in your zone of genius. Because at some point, if you're a high achiever, if you're still camping out, if your business still is camping out, if what you're doing is camping out in the zone of excellence, you're going to get bored. This dip may
Yep.
simply be a nudge to say, get your ass out, let's keep it moving, right? Move. So a part of it is assessing that. But one of the things he says was, when you're moving into the zone of genius, that oftentimes our subconscious will sabotage that particular movement. So maybe your business is your zone of genius, and you're actually sabotaging yourself because of that. And so one of the things
Yeah.
that he recommends is constantly reminding yourself. He has a lot of great techniques within there, but constantly reminding yourself of the value that you bring in your zone of genius, and disconnecting from the atta-girls, the atta-boys
Yep.
by operating in your zone of excellence, because we want to move back to that, right? It's sort of like this
Okay.
idea of you have a set point. So that is also one book that I would recommend because of it is a multi-layered book, and there's like sort of three things that I noticed coming out of that.
Yeah.
However, it's one of those things that will push you past and help you identify when you are actually sabotaging yourself versus if this is a situation where you just need to continue to buttress your mindset.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Kerry-Ann, we are out of time, but there's so much more that we could talk about here, and you've given us so much insight and resources and recommendations. If someone wants to find out more about the good work you're doing, what's the best way for someone to connect with you?
Absolutely. Well, my website is trafalgarstrategies.co. You
Okay.
can find me there, but I hang out in LinkedIn.
All
So
right.
give me a message and say, me and Zach are good friends. I'm in Zach's crew. I'll be happy to connect.
All right. Love it. Well, thank you again for your time today. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Zach. Take care.